You've had this conversation before, maybe dozens of times, same issue, same position, nothing gets resolved. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you're starting to wonder, is this normal? Why can't we figure this out? Most couples assume that every relationship problem has a solution, that if they just found the right words, the right moment, the right approach, they'd finally figure it out. So when a problem keeps coming back, it starts to feel like the evidence of something else, like you're not with the right person or that the relationship itself is the problem. That assumption that unresolved means unfixable is one of the most damaging things couples can carry into their conflict. I'm Monica Burford, a licensed marriage and family therapist and couples therapist in Sacramento, California. I help couples who haven't given up but who've slowly drifted into a side-by-side loneliness they can't quite name. And today I want to talk about an important reframe about conflict, one that I hope will change the way that you see and approach your next argument. If you've seen my video on whether differences make you incompatible, you've heard this research before. Here, I want to take it a step further into what happens when a perpetual problem becomes entrenched and how to find your way through it. Gottman research shows that 69% of relationship conflict is due to perpetual problems. The issues come back because they are stemming from a fundamental difference in personality, values, or needs, and not from a lack of love or effort. Only 31% of problems are solvable, meaning that they have a specific answer and a clear solution, like what you're having for dinner tonight, who picks up the kids when, and where you spend the holidays, or a one-time financial decision. These also take compromise, of course, but they resolve. So if it feels like you've been having the same argument for years, you probably have. And the reason it hasn't been resolved isn't a lack of effort. It's that you've been trying to solve something that isn't solvable. Perpetual problems are different. They're rooted in who each person fundamentally is. Different needs for order versus flexibility, an introvert and an extrovert navigating how much social time they need, different relationships with money, like one person who saves and one who spends, different parenting philosophies, or different sex drives. These aren't communication failures, they're two different people. Dan Weil, a couples researcher, put it simply, choosing a partner is like choosing a set of problems. So when you're choosing someone, you're also choosing a particular set of perpetual problems. You don't avoid them by finding a different partner, you trade one set for another. For me, this reframe was permission to release the idea that the right relationship would be free from friction. It isn't. It just has a different type of friction. So how do you know if you're dealing with a solvable or a perpetual problem? There are a few signs that it's a perpetual problem. One, you've had this conversation many times and across different contexts. Two, you've come up with compromises that just don't seem to stick, or compromises that weren't actually a compromise because you were trying to appease your partner. Three, the topic starts to feel loaded before the conversation even begins. And four, you find yourself more resistant to the idea of compromise or to change. Gottman calls the extreme version of this gridlock, when a perpetual problem becomes so entrenched that dialogue stops, when the conversation feels more painful than productive, when both partners feel like they're being asked to give up something fundamental about who they are. That's when a perpetual problem stops being something that you manage together, and it starts to feel like the thing that will tear your relationship apart. Here's the shift. The goal with a perpetual problem is not to solve it. It's to understand it and manage it together. According to the Gottmans, there's a need, a value, a personal history, or what they call a life dream behind most entrenched positions. Something that matters not just because of this argument, but because of who your partner is and where they came from. When you understand that, the conversation changes. Not because you suddenly agree with your partner, but because both you and your partner feel understood instead of questioned. That's what makes dialogue possible. Instead of, we need to figure this out once and for all, try, help me understand why this matters so much to you. And then actually listen. Not to find a flaw in their reasoning or to build your counter argument, but to understand where your partner is coming from. Two questions that can open that conversation are, one, what would it mean to you if we handle this your way? And two, is there something about this that connects to something bigger for you? You'll often find that what looked like stubbornness has something much more personal. And once you see it, it's harder to dismiss. Take the introvert and extrovert navigating social time. Understanding might reveal that for one partner, alone time isn't rejection. It's how they refuel. That doesn't mean the difference disappears, but it changes the conversation from, you never want to go out with me and my friends, to, how do we make sure that we both get what we need? That's where the workable arrangements come from. That shift moves you from a place where the topic shuts everything down to a place where you can talk about it with some openness and maybe even some humor, where you understand each other's position even if you don't share it, a place where neither of you feels alone. And most importantly, where you found ways to honor both of your needs without either of you disappearing. That doesn't mean that you never feel frustrated. It means that the problem no longer feels like a verdict on your relationship. Now, understanding isn't the finish line. It's what makes the work that follows feels like something that you're choosing together rather than something that you're giving up. If you and your partner keep finding yourselves in the same loop and can't find a way through, I offer free 45-minute video consultations for couples. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time.